Alright, so from the start of Nier, you're immediately playing the game. No more than 5 minutes in, it's a shoot-'em-up type of gameplay. You have 5 other androids with you. All of them get killed.
Captain, I think.
So yeah, after all your android buddies are killed, then you have to meet up with someone called 9S. 2B's mission here is to kill a Goliath-class enemy. And that's the thing that killed 5 of your friends, so it gives you an idea how big this enemy is. But before you meet 9S, you get your first taste of ground combat. So the game slowly reels you into understanding combat by dealing with some small enemies right before a boss fight. And I think this is a good idea, because the game doesn't offer you any autosaves or checkpoints. So dying here would send you right back to the beginning of the game. And on the subject of autosaving, I adore that this game doesn't give you an autosave or any checkpoints. It's a form of punishment. It causes you to play more carefully and save when you can so you won't lose any items. Around here we're introduced to 9S, the sweet childlike sidekick, and I can't stand him. I'll explain more of this later. Continuing on into the factory, we see the difference between 2B and 9S's characters. 9S is definitely more curious and trying to see the bright side of a bad story, while 2B on the other hand is the cold soldier. Nothing comes before the mission, even if that means suppressing emotions.
Stop calling me ma'am.
Eventually we get our first boss fight, the Goliath. 9S comes and helps deal with him. Unfortunately, 9S is taken out pretty quickly. After killing the first boss, 2B is injured and 3 more Goliaths appear. Knowing they probably can't beat them, 2B and 9S decided to blow themselves up along with the enemies. After all that, we're brought to a place called the Bunker. The Bunker is where all Yorha members are, 9S and 2B being Yorha members. 9S explains how they're both still alive, the fact that 9S uploaded 2B's data to a server on the Bunker so they can just move her into another body. As early as this, I stopped caring for the safety of these two characters. Them having a backup of themselves mean no matter how many times they die, they'll always come back. If I had to, let's say, save 9S or 2B under a certain time limit, why would I rush? Is it even worth trying to save them? If one of them dies, they'll always come back. There are no consequences for them dying. This really took me out of the mood for caring for these characters. Why should I be concerned over keeping them safe if at the end of the day, it doesn't matter? It's explained that the androids have to upload their data to a server to back themselves up. So if they die in combat and don't upload anything, that android doesn't remember anything past the last data upload.
Back up your memories. Mine are only intact up to the point just before we rendezvoused.
And that helps to care for the characters a bit more, but anytime 2B or 9S are in a dangerous situation, I'm never really worried for them. Whereas a game like Uncharted, Nathan Drake was shot and clinging on to the bit of life he had. Still, this makes you concerned for him that there might be a small possibility of him dying, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's the end of his story and that's the end of the game. You're rooting for this character, trying to play as safe as possible, keeping him out of danger and hoping that he'll make it out. Whereas 2B and 9S will have backups of themselves, so if something just smashed into 9S, of course there would be a moment of shock. Is he okay? But then realization that, oh, he'll just pop out of the android toaster in a bit anyways. It never seemed that big of a loss, or a loss at all, really. Something that I did like about Nier was after coming to the open world part of the game, you have immediate freedom. To continue with the story, you have to go to the waypoint, but the game doesn't stop you from exploring. The further you go in, you realize just how big this game is. The further you go out, the higher the enemy levels are. This acts as a deterrent from keeping you from going too far. There are only a few places that are blocked because of the story, and I'm okay with that. It's better for me that the game explains what's happening, where and why I'm here, rather than me just finding it and removing all the charm and mystery around it. It was around this time during my exploration that I noticed, while running, the camera likes to come down and tilt up, and I think it's just to show a bit of 2B's ass. And it's a big part of the game, I understand, but when I have to constantly be adjusting the camera just to see properly and over the character to see what's in front of me, it's an issue. And I don't think you should have to compromise a camera angle for this. Hell, you have an option to blow off her skirt completely and make her walk around like this. I mean, there's plenty of people who are gonna just pull the camera down and see all of it. So why would they give you such a terrible camera angle if it's obscuring some of the view ahead? And this camera angle is terrible, to be honest. A perfect example is when I was playing as 9S, I was going down the sewer and I was sliding on water, and the water would just completely engulf the screen. Another thing that Automata does that's really neat is, while playing online, you have a chance to stumble upon another player's body. It's kinda like Bloodborne with the bloodstains, but unlike Bloodborne, these bodies actually provide you with some aid. When you discover a body, you're allowed to pray for them. Praying for the player will provide them with full health and an item. Likewise, you'll also get a reward, like getting temporary status effects or repairing the body to gain an ally. I like this because it offers just the right amount of assistance without being too much. After chasing down a machine, you fall into a pit and see a few of them getting busy. After killing a few of them, you're introduced to a new human-like character, and I like this fight. The enemy first just takes all your punishment and slowly starts learning the more damage he's dealt, eventually even attacking back. After beating this guy, he's stabbed by both 2B and 9S, and then clones himself? I really don't remember if this is explained in the story.
Damn it, not another one.
After that last boss fight and returning back to the Resistance camp, both 2B and 9S are asked to look for some missing androids. And it was around this point I actually started to warm up to 9S a bit. He actually seemed concerned about the androids, while 2B didn't seem too bothered about it. While looking for these androids, you're introduced to the amusement park. It was a nice surprise and a change of pace. These machines seem like they want to have just a good time instead of fighting, but they do become hostile if you attack them first. I was actually happy to see that I can explore in peace without any threats. You can talk to all the machines too. You can see how different they are. The machines actually have a bit of depth to them. Not far into the amusement park, we're back into combat. Also, you can hear some friendly banter between 2B and 9S, where 9S tells 2B that people close to him call him Nines, and asks if 2B would like to call him that too. However, 2B lays him flat, all while riding a roller coaster. Right after the roller coaster, we're on to our next boss, and I love this boss's design. I find the common enemies designed to be pretty boring, and I'm happy that the bosses are so different and so unique. So this boss fight was pretty straightforward, like any other fight. Unfortunately, this boss battle had a lot of moments where the camera would shift. This would usually result in me taking damage, and I hated when the game would do this. Unfortunately, this game does it quite a bit. A few times I couldn't even see the boss because of the camera, so I would just stand back and shoot him with pod. And it would be a relief and the camera would return back to normal. Unfortunately, this would happen again when the other androids would fall and try to hack you. Speaking of hacking, you get your first taste of it here in this boss fight. Hacking starts you off simple by having you destroy some boxes and a sphere. Eventually enemies will start sending attackers after you. Being hit 3 times causes you to fail the hack and take damage. Hacking is a nice change of pace for the combat. Not that the combat was bad. I actually really enjoyed it with the amount of different weapons in this game, and each different weapon category offers a different set of moves. This game wasn't short on weapons either. From swords to bare fists to spears. Weapons can also be upgraded by the weapons trader to do more damage. The fact that you can use 2 different weapons on a single loadout was really neat and offered a bunch of customization. Another thing that I really liked is that you can instantly switch between different sets of weapons, just by hitting up on the D-pad, while pushing down on the D-pad allows you to use another item, such as a health item. This is another great idea so the combat wouldn't have to be halted. That way you don't have to pause the game, go to items, and manually select the health item. You can even adjust 9S combat mode. Combat is also buttery smooth because surprisingly the game runs at 60 frames per second, even on my launch PS4. And to help you with combat, you have a little buddy named Pod, and he uses long range attacks and has other uses too, like gravity to hold down the enemies, or a shield. What I like about Nier is you can get 2 more pods, and the game didn't even tell me that. I discovered one in the desert because my controller was beeping, and the other one you can fish for.
Did you just catch a pod?
Hypothesis.
Once 2B kills the boss, we move to a machine's village. Pascal's the leader of this village, and he explains that everyone in the village is a pacifist. Not long after meeting Pascal, there's an attack from another Goliath enemy. While running towards the action, 9S mentions that both he and 2B have to go between the Goliath's legs to get to some flight units, and he also mentions that it'll be dangerous, except it's not. I walked right underneath the Goliath's legs and I even went under its foot, but 2B didn't take any damage, nor did she even stumble. I can damage the Goliath's upper body, but its legs don't seem to have a hurt box. Now, this would be excusable if this was the first time it had happened, but it wasn't. The first time this had happened was after the first fight against Adam, the machine that looked like a human. After the music gets intense and the environment around you starts to collapse, 9S says we need to get out of here, but there was really no danger. I even tried to make debris fall on me and nothing had happened. Unlike the Goliath though, both 2B and 9S would stumble every few seconds. I don't see why they didn't make it happen again walking between the Goliath's legs, seeing how 9S built up how dangerous it would be. Anyways, you move on and fight the Goliath, and it's really easy. I even checked the difficulty to make sure I hadn't reset it to normal. But I think this was more of a mini-boss. After defeating the Goliath again, it blows up a big-ass hole in the ground. And with that, we find where the aliens were hiding. So at this point, you may be wondering, where do aliens fit into all this? Basically, they brought the machines to the Earth, and the humans couldn't stop them, so they flew to the moon and made Yorha. I found that the story was kinda convoluted, so please forgive me if I missed some things. Anyways, you jump in the hole to find out the aliens are already dead. Right after that, you find the androids who you had fought before. We also get their names, then we're thrown into a fight. This fight also doesn't matter. If you defeat Adam or Eve, they don't die, they just leave, and then they come back. They fight until the dialogue is over. I decided to drop the difficulty here back to normal, so I can focus on the story rather than the fight. And here I notice how drastically different the difficulty is. It's a pretty big jump from normal to hard, and it's really rare for a game to nail the difficulty on normal, but this game did it and it did it well. Damn it. That is ridiculous. I also haven't mentioned the fact that you can upgrade 2B with some plug-in chips that add attack damage, better defense, or faster movement. I couldn't see why with a faster plug-in chip they couldn't have added something to keep 2B from stumbling on every bush she hit, or why she doesn't even start running again. She can start a run again from a roll, so why can't she do it when she hits a bush? It's getting me to the point where most of the time I was so tired of having her stumble on something that I would just be spamming the R2 trigger. This may seem like a nitpick, but it was happening so often and getting more and more frustrating. A while later, you're on your way to visit the Forest Kingdom. Around here you see that the game likes to throw some humor every now and again. For a game that takes itself pretty seriously with the story, it's nice to see that the game can throw a gag here and there. This was the first part of the game that actually made me laugh. 2B even started to talk more, and it seemed like she cares more for 9S now. The way these two characters talk to one another sounded genuine and natural. They don't sound robotic, and there's a lot of emotion behind what they're saying. After killing the little king, we're introduced to another character, who is a Yorha android, A2. And 2B and 9S are tasked to destroy her. This results in a boss fight. After defeating her, she runs away, but not before leaving you with a cryptic message.
Command is the one that betrayed you.
Next, we're brought to the last new location of the game, the Flooded City. You spend the least amount of time here in this location. This being the last location, I want to talk more about the places you visit in the game. I like that each location is pretty different from one another. The forest area has lots of wildlife living there, while the desert is dead and dry. I love the little details in the environment. The constant water moving in the stream, the heat from the desert sand, and the animals resting and eating in the field. This helps bring the environment to life.
What the fuck?
I think Nier does a good job at spacing the shoot 'em up segments. This is the longest shoot 'em up part of the game, and you even get a boss fight. I actually had the camera glitch on me here and I couldn't see the boss. After you defeat the boss, there's an even larger enemy that appears, and you're tasked to take out the EMP generator on its back. After you destroy the generator, reinforcements arrive. After reinforcements arrive, 9S and 2B leave to use a railgun.
This thing's armor is too thick.
And when that fails, our buddy Pascal comes to save 2B and 9S, and gives a little backstory about the giant.
I think I have another idea. You keep that thing
So
right where
9S
it
has
is,
another
okay?
plan, he leaves to go try it,
2B. This
leaving
is gonna
2B to
work.
destroy the EMP generator on this thing's back. So 9S comes back with this big ass missile and he blows the thing up, sending 2B flying and 9S nowhere to be found. 2B later wakes up and gets in contact with Operator 6-0. She then asks for Operator 6-0 to start a search for 9S.
If you found something, that
Now
means
this
it must
annoys
be
me
alive.
because it feels like the game wants you to forget about the other Yorha members that were lost. Operator 6-0 then tells you that the commander already asked to track down surviving members of Yorha. But you're not asked that. In fact, 6-0 asked if 2B finds 9S to let them know. What's annoying is that in this exact same area there are 5 other Yorha members that are still alive. But you're not told that. You're not even asked to keep an eye out for them. After coming back to the Resistance camp, you're looking for a dynamic scanner to help find 9S.
You want.
And you're introduced to some twin red-headed android girls, and they're my favorite characters, hands
You don't have
down.
to trust every idiot that wanders by.
After you get the scanner, you're on your way to search for 9S again, only to lead you back into the Flooded City, to talk to a Yorha unit that's been wounded that wasn't even there in the first place. Now, I'm not going to beat a dead horse here, so after talking to her, she gives you an idea where 9S probably landed. After searching, you find the copied city. And after following a ton of android corpses, we find Adam. And I want to talk about him for a bit. I like Adam. I think he's a really cool character. Something this game did really well was make me like an antagonist more than the protagonist. Adam feels like he wants to be human. 2B even comments that he knows nothing about humanity, but I would argue he's more human than she is. The fact that he can die without coming back makes him more human than 2B. He cuts himself off from the server to do this. After you fight Adam for a bit and cut his health down to half, he shows us 9S, and he's not in great shape. 2B flips out and we're back into the boss fight, where we stab at him and kill him. From there we grab 9S and bounce. And around here we can see how 2B's really getting attached to 9S. And that's good character growth. I was hoping from here she would be a little bit more talkative.
Proposal denied.
Next, 2B is sent to analyze the trends of the machines.
Something tells me this is going to involve a lot of killing.
You meet up with our buddy Pascal again and visit some religious machines.
You enter the domain of God.
Only for that to backfire. 2B gets attacked after the machines realize that the leader's dead already and became a god. And the followers want to become gods as well. This part is well remembered by everyone I talk to about this game. And I think a part of it is because of the music. Now, I haven't really talked much about the music, but the music's fantastic, and I think Kiichi Okabe knocked it out of the park. It's fantastic and definitely worth a listen to. Now, just because the music's fantastic doesn't mean the game gets a 10. If that was the case, then Sonic R would be hailed as the greatest game ever, as it should be. From here, 2B needs to fight her way out of this factory, and Pascal just comes along for the ride. 9S then hacks into some machines and helps us find a way out, because he's that helpful. We get a boss fight right before we leave, and unfortunately we can't hurt it because it's shield around its body. Thankfully, however, 9S comes and saves the day and disables the shield. And I hope you like this boss because you'll be seeing him quite a bit. And I thought it was really cool seeing the bright sparks and shockwaves contrast against the darkness. After leaving the factory, we see Eve mourning over his brother.
Why did you have to die?
And the machines are even attacking the resistance camp.
Eating them?
When 2B gets there, the machines have already trashed it, and now are eating the resistance members. After defeating all the machines in the resistance camp, we come out to fight the last boss again.
You again?
This time it's a bit different. The boss summons more machines to help him fight 2B. Also, it's electrifying the water, so only long-range attacks work. Then it moves only being a ball and rolling and bouncing towards 2B. 9S then comes and crashes his flight unit into the boss, finally killing it. We then find out that Eve was actually controlling it. I think. Now you have to fight Eve in the final boss fight, and he's a glowing ball, I think? Or he just summoned it? Something like that, I have no idea. But this boss fight's pretty different. The enemy would attack, then drop all the machine parts, and you have to hit the glowing ball. After you defeat this boss, you can finally fight Eve. But before that, you hear Eve in despair over his brother, and it really made me feel bad for him. This game did a great job at making me feel for the antagonist, and I love that. I actually like these two characters a lot. Finally, we fight Eve, and this fight's really cool. All the bosses in this game are really unique, and Eve's no different. The way he used machine parts to extend his reach or toss them as projectiles, there was even a small platforming area during this boss fight. I really enjoyed this boss fight, and I thought they did an excellent job with it. 9S then hacks into Eve while 2B holds him off. After successfully hacking into Eve, 9S then attacks him. This sets off the second part of the boss fight, where mainly projectiles are useful here. Later, 2B is damaged to the point where she can't even dodge, putting you into an even more stressful situation. So you need to keep some distance between 2B and Eve, and after all that, 2B stabs Eve through the head. We find out a few moments later that 9S is now corrupt. And here he proves my point that none of them were in any real danger.
Backup data from the bunker.
But you'll lose you, the you that exists at this very moment.
Guess so.
And to me, that's such a small consequence. 9S will still be alive, and 2B won't feel anywhere near as bad as Eve felt when he lost his brother. Because at the end of the day, 9S will still come back. This is probably the reason I liked Adam and Eve so much more over 2B and 9S. After choking 9S, 2B, then crying over 9S's body, noticed that one of the machines are still alive, and it turns out to be 9S.
It looks like I left my personal data in the machine side of things.
And this ends 2B's story. So next we have 9S's story, and here's where most of the things I hate about Nier come out.
You can't make a machine.
And not to make this video 40 minutes long, I'm not going to go through every bit of 9S's story. That's because it's the same story as 2B's, with about 23 minutes of actual background story for the bosses and other characters. It also gives you a bit of the backstory around the first game. Honestly, this felt so lazy to me. Maybe because the game wasn't long enough, they added 6 hours of padding to this. It's such a dumb thing that made me dislike this so much and nearly ruined the game for me. Now, an argument I've heard that this is New Game Plus, and I don't know who came up with that, but if you believe that, that's fine. Please try explain that to me. I don't see this as New Game Plus at all. I see this as part 2 of a story, so you can finally get to part 3, what should have originally been part 2. If this is New Game Plus, then this has 5 New Game Pluses. It frustrates me so much that this would be the way the game would go. The pacing was fine, but to add more content, we need you to backtrack about 5 hours. Now you can argue that the game tells its story through gameplay and not cutscenes, something Metal Gear hasn't heard of, but in no way should you have 5 hours of gameplay explain no more than 25 minutes worth of story. It seems so lazily thought out. What I think Platinum should have done here was the ability to switch between characters. You can still play as 9S, and when missions involve them being separated, you can just switch them over. But to reward you for sitting through this again, you get some insight on some of the bosses and the machines. 9S isn't very good at combat, he even states this before. So your real main attack will be hacking. The hacking part of the game is neat, but I honestly prefer the hack and slash more. It's not that the hacking is bad, it just gets old after a while. Good news is you can still attack with 9S even though he's not great at it. After hacking about 30 enemies, you've seen most if not all hacking patterns. But the hacking gets a little bit more complex here with plug-in chips. You can now have a machine self-destruct or join you as an ally, or even take control of the hacked enemy. That's pretty much where the differences end here. You still have time to finish up any side quests that you haven't done. On the subject of side quests, I did most of them. And I'll speak about 2 that really stuck out to me. One was a lonely machine that was standing on the side of a broken down building. Now this side quest really stuck out to me, because unlike other side quests, the game didn't tell me what to do here. This machine just refused to talk to 9S. So I would leave and then come back later and try to talk to it again, and nothing would change. It wasn't until later that I thought maybe I should try hacking into him. I love side missions like that, and I love games that do that. It makes you think without the game having to tell you what to do. And this machine had a lot of deep thoughts, and it really spoke about the other machines in this game too. The next side mission was called Amnesia, and this one stuck out to me too. A Resistance member's friend was killed, and you're tasked to track down who did it. This turns into a wild goose chase, and after some awful camera angles, you talk to this Resistance member known as Jackass, who is the only female Resistance member in the desert. She then sends you back to the woman who gave you the quest in the first place. You hack into that Resistance member and find out she was the one that killed her friend. She turns out to be a Yorha Type E android. E being Execute, she was tasked to kill her friend. And we find out that she has some psychological problems because of it. This stuck out to me because up to here, every android had been so cool-headed. Right before finishing 9S's story, you actually find out that humans went extinct long before the aliens even arrived, and that the human server on the moon was just put there to boost morale. After finishing 9S's story, you're now in the last third of the game. So we come back with Yorha going into one final assault on the machines. It fails. A virus controls most of the Yorha units, and 9S and 2B are tasked to take them out. I think it's implied that 9S uploaded the virus to the bunker after 2B fought Adam.
What was that?
Eventually, 2B and 9S return to the bunker to try to warn the commander. Unfortunately, the commander is already infected with the virus, and the bunker is destroyed. After the bunker is destroyed, 2B and 9S are the last members of Yorha. After returning back from Earth, 2B takes control of 9S's flight unit and sends him away from danger. After 2B ejects, we see that she's infected with the virus. And here is where I actually started to worry for 2B. Just watching 2B struggle, it made me feel bad. She's a character who's been so strong through the entire game. Through the entire game, I didn't like her. I never really cared for 2B much. It took a virus for me to actually like her. Eventually, 2B is attacked by 2 infected Yorha members. Now, because of the virus, she can't dodge or attack back, and she's actually saved by A2. Unfortunately, the virus does too much damage to 2B. 9S comes looking for 2B, only to find her stabbed by A2. And he gets pretty pissed off about this, then falls off the bridge. From here on, you now have the choice to follow A2 or 9S. And I like A2, I think she's really cool. And I like to see her as a long-haired version of 2. Oh, never mind. But to be honest, I really like A2, and I liked her a lot more than the other 2 playable characters. She feels more emotional than 2B and less annoying than 9S. She also shows quite a bit of growth. At one part she wants to kill all machines, but later when Pascal's village is attacked, she's worried about the machine children. Whereas 2B only opens up more as the game goes on, and only to 9S. It doesn't seem like she cares for any of her other Yorha members. She has no problems killing them, and she doesn't even offer to try finding some of the other Yorha members that were lost in the EMP blast. She even kills Operator 6-0, but the game doesn't even notice it. It's like no big loss. And that's probably why I didn't like 2B that much. Her priority was 9S from the start of the game, and 9S only, and there's a reason to that later. But she's also attached to the commander, and she didn't even care about Operator 6-0, someone who's been checking up on her from the start of the game for who knows how long. While playing as A2, you wander around for a bit and get your first boss fight. And surprise, it's this guy again. But this time it's really big, there's actually 9 of them. And this is where A2 shows off that she has a berserk mode. Her attacks are much faster, but her health is constantly depleting as a trade-off. And this is what sets her apart from 2B. After defeating the boss, you're given a bit of a background on A2 and 2B. Eventually A2 runs into Pascal and he's being attacked by some machines. A2 saves him, but you have the option of killing him. Killing him ends the game, so you probably don't want to do that. So, after you spare him, you go into the resistance camp and ask for a fuel filter, only to be told that Pascal makes them and that she should go ask him. From here you get sent on to a fetch quest because he doesn't have the right materials. Pascal later gives you the fuel filter, and after that a machine asks A2 to get Pascal a philosophy book as a gift. And you can get the book at the resistance camp. After I got the book, I went to do some side quests, and after I finished these side quests, I never went to see Pascal. But the next part of the game played out like I had. Maybe I was too slow on a time limit? Anyways, Pascal calls, and you can definitely hear that something's wrong. So A2's then on her way to go check up on him.
What the hell is going on?
After A2 gets to the village, a large number of machines are now attacking each other. Pascal then takes the children away, and A2 has to destroy all the machines in the village. After destroying all the machines in the village, we then meet up with Pascal in the abandoned factory, with the other survivors.
Are you okay?
Soon after, more machines come to attack Pascal and the others. Pascal also joins you in attacking the other machines. Realizing that violence was the true answer all along, he brings a Goliath, and you're soon taking out everything that's in your way. This is one of the coolest parts of the game, and has a really cool fight against another Goliath. Pascal then comes down to check on all the children who've unfortunately killed themselves. Pascal taught them fear, which led to them killing themselves. Pascal then asked A2 to kill him or erase all his memories.
Initiating hacking to cut off
Pod. Pascal's memories.
Understood.
Now, if you're still on the fence of buying this game, allow me to guarantee Square a sale in the next scene.
He's awake, Devola.
Now that you've bought 2 copies of the game, we now get to play as 9S. 9S states that he's going to kill all the machines and A2.
I'm going to kill A2.
9S then has to destroy the core on 3 towers. Each tower has its own challenges and offer a bit more about the story of Yorha and the humans. Like that the black boxes the Yorha members have are made from machine cores. While clearing each tower, 9S's mental state is getting worse and worse. After going through the 3rd tower, 9S has to fight the only other person he really talked to, and that's Operator 210. You can really see 9S struggling with having to fight her. And I did feel bad for 9S here, and I also felt bad for 210. During the fight she mentions how she was lonely and wanted a family. I never really made a big deal over this character. The way I see it is she didn't have as deep of an interaction with the main characters. Hell, I liked Operator 60 more, and 2B didn't have a problem killing her. A2 comes and saves 9S, and she tells him that 2B wanted 9S to become a good person. 9S, still angry about 2B, then attacks A2, then takes a little tumble. After a short boss fight, we're back with 9S to attack the main tower. After hacking into the 3 locks, 9S then hacks into the main tower, only to be overwhelmed by machines. Devola and Popola come to keep the machines busy while 9S goes back to hacking. 9S fails and Popola gets the door open. Now we get the backstory about the twins and why I love these characters. And I'll make this short, these two characters really love each other. They care so deeply for one another even through the worst situations. Devola and Popola are a model of android that's trusted to save humanity. Unfortunately, 2 other androids of the same model caused an incident that doomed humanity. And the Devola and Popola in-game face so much hate because they're the same models of android that doomed humanity. They were also programmed to feel constant guilt. They're my favorite characters, hands down. I place them so high above everything else. In fact, here's an official tier list. You should definitely read more about them, they're really cool and I think they're really interesting. Anyways, after 9S enters the tower, he has to fight more Yorha units. Then he has to fight a bunch of 2B models, so his psyche's pretty fucked at this point. A2 then enters the tower and accesses the library. And this has a ton of info about the story and Yorha, including the fact that 2B is actually a Type E android. And she's meant to kill 9S. That's why she was so cold to 9S for most of the game. And that's why she's so attached to him too. To me that kinda falls short. 2B cared for 9S from the start of the game way more than she did for any other android. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but in the beginning of the game, this is the first time 9S and 2B are meeting, right? The first 5 androids seem like no big loss to 2B, but the minute 9S appears, she's tunnel vision. This is just a nitpick, and just because I don't have the answer to this doesn't mean there isn't one, so please tell me what you think. And we're back to 9S, who's just lost an arm and has done a quick field repair. After a bit of walking, we discover 2 floating red android machine girls? Ghosts? Things? AI? I really don't know what you would call them, but after fighting some more machines, they give you a document showing that Yorha was meant to be destroyed from the start, to hide the fact that humans aren't on the moon, and that Yorha models would be replaced. Now we come back to A2 for a boss fight, and you've seen him before. Then you fight the floating little AI android girl thing. They can't be killed, so Pod comes up with an idea to let them fight each other.
Do you truly think you can win?
Both A2 and 9S have to now fight similar bosses, and I like that A2 fights on the ground while 9S fights in a flight unit. Honestly, I felt that this boss fight dragged on too long, because in the end both bosses just join together and refill their health bar. Finally, we're on our last fight with 9S and A2. Now you get to pick which character you want to be, and this has 2 different endings, so we'll start with A2. The fight against 9S is really cool. He uses everything he has. He uses physical attacks, pod, and even hacking, causing errors with A2. And I really enjoyed this boss fight, and it definitely made up for the last one. After defeating 9S, A2 then hacks into him to try to repair him. After repairing him, A2 then asks Pod to take care of 9S. The structure collapses along with A2. This is one of the 3 main endings. Now, if you choose to play as 9S, the fight switches to a 2D style camera. And hacking makes this fight a cakewalk. I love the new hacking camera angles, and that the layout was different from what I had already seen. At one point, you're even hacking on top of the pause menu, and Nier does a lot of little touches like that are so cool, and it deserves so much praise for how clever they are. A2 is then distracted by 2B's cheap shot, and now 9S must have the shittiest luck ever. Because right after stabbing A2, he ends up falling onto her sword. I feel bad for him because this guy's fate was sealed the minute Yoko Taro thought of his character. During 9S's final moments, we see how he felt about a lot of things, including the first time meeting 2B. I actually like this ending the most. There's beauty in this tragedy. I feel a game that ends on a sad note will always remain a more memorable story to me. Losing all 3 of the main characters was sad even for me. I didn't even like 9S that much, but watching this ending and seeing how he felt, it bummed me out. The entire game I didn't like 9S and I couldn't figure out why. I think it had a lot to do with this back and forth in the beginning of the game. How can machines understand the concept of a king and loyalty, yet he's been in a village full of pacifists with a leader?
Machines can't feel pain.
I cannot live with this heartbreak inside me.
To exist, I must be strong. Merely destroying life will not earn me approval. But if so, what gives I lead to the world? It is painful. So painful.
I think ultimately what led me to not like 9S was his story, and all the filler there was, even though it's not this character's fault. This ending, however, I did end up liking 9S, and I did feel bad for him. Now then, watch as Nier throws that shit in the fucking trash, cause here comes the true ending! While the credits roll, both 9S and 2B's pods talk to each other and try to save A2, 9S, and 2B. And this is where another nice little touch Nier throws in. Nier pulls a melee and lets you shoot the credits. You're probably gonna die here a few times, or a lot of times like I did in my first playthrough because I wasn't connected online. But after dying a certain amount of times and answering some questions, you receive aid from other players. Sorry for losing your data, by the way. After this, we come to our true ending, where the pods bring everyone back. Now, this ending I honestly didn't care for. Whereas a game like Metal Gear Solid 3 hits you like a freight train, this game takes back anything bad that happened. All three characters are alive and everything is happy again. But I know a lot of people probably enjoy this ending more, so good for them. After getting this ending, you're offered to help others who are struggling with the credits part. And I have to give this game credit because stuff like this is what makes it stand out. I actually did give up my save here, but I only thought it would take one of them. I didn't think it would take all three, and I actually had plans to reload a save and go more in depth into this game. Uh-oh. So my final thoughts on Nier. I gave this game hell. I never really thought it was any good, but my opinion definitely changed after this third playthrough. I think what ruined my chance of liking this game so much was the padding. And I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but I can't stand games that do that. And during my live stream, it definitely felt like I had something against this game. Oop, right up the rock. Slide up a rock, but a bush? Gotta stop running through that. God, I hate you, 9S, so fucking much.
Wait a second, 2B.
This game's stupid. I wanted to give this game praise where it was due. And now I want to ask, why do you like Nier? The amount of nitpicks I had for this game spanned 3 unused pages. And it felt like I just wanted to nitpick this game apart. And anyone can nitpick games apart, and I didn't want to do that to Nier. After this playthrough though, I will admit, I think Nier Automata is a good game. But it's far from a masterpiece. Also, the twins never came back, so yeah, fuck this game. Hi, if you made it this far, thanks for watching. This is my first time ever writing a script for a video. And I know I messed up quite a bit. I was planning on this being just a short review. Instead, I read off the whole story of the game. So I'll probably just call this a critique or something like that. And I want to do more of these, so any tips would be nice. But it may sound like I hate Nier. I don't hate Nier. I actually think it's pretty good. That last part was a joke. And I think I'm pretty Niered out at this point. I'd love to know more about Nier, but I have a lot of questions about it too, so I'd rather talk to someone and I mean, I know I can watch videos on the subject, but I'd rather talk to someone and work through it like that. I'm pretty Niered out at this point though. I played this game 3 times already. And I think most people would probably just play it once and put it on the shelf. In fact, a lot of my friends who I talk to about this game, they say, yeah, the game's so good, and the characters and the music, and I'm like, cool, but what about the story? And they're like, I don't remember it. So, you know, not saying the story's bad, because it's not. It just seems like the characters carry the game more. But, I'm excited for the new Nier game. I'm gonna pick it up. Maybe I'll do a review of that one and it won't be 40 minutes long. Anyways, thanks again for watching.